In this episode, I get romantic in this special Valentine's Day episode of Days of Dorker Past, so stick around. Hello, friends, and welcome to Days of Dorker Past. My name is Rob, and the Valentine's Day season is upon us. So, I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about 10 of the most romantic, dorky things from my childhood that really fueled my imagination on what love should be and could be. These run the gamut from cartoons, movies, and comic books, and these are all things that really appealed to me and that romantic side that I've always had. So, let's kick things off with number 1, Robin Hood and Maid Marian. This is a romance that has its origins from the 16th century in some of the earliest of Robin Hood literature. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the re-release of the 1973 classic from Disney, Robin Hood. It was re-released in 1982, and I could not get enough of it. I remember going to the theater multiple times. And when I was a kid and I pretended to be Robin Hood, running around the woods in my backyard, I was the fox Robin Hood. Not any old dude, the fox dude. And what made this romance really appeal to me in 1982 was how childlike and innocent it was. I mean, Robin Hood would daydream about Maid Marian, and the way they looked at each other was just cute, wide-eyed, and romantic to a 6-year-old. It was very pure, cute, fun, and in my mind, that was how romance should have been. I think what spoke most to me at 6 was how cute and innocent it all was. I mean, what would you expect from a Disney film? But to this day, I love that movie, and just when they look at each other from across the way, that look still gets me. Number 2 on the list is Flint and Lady Jaye. Now, growing up, the cartoon, will start with that. I don't think it was ever directly implied or said that they were a couple, but just how they playfully bantered with each other and had moments of tenderness and slight moments of romance for a kid's cartoon let you know that they were together. For a cartoon, they really played off each other great, and there was an actual chemistry between them. Now, in the comic at the time, they really went more into it a little bit, with like Flint kind of being arrogant and Lady Jaye not really digging him the first time they met, even though he was completely smitten with her. But it took an act of courage and self-sacrifice of Flint for her to realize that he was a good dude and maybe he was worth her time. It was something that, again, once it was established, it was just known from then on out. But a little bit more in the cartoon than the comic was that Lady Jaye was just a tough-as-nails lady, and she wouldn't put up with any crap. And they each saved each other an equal amount of times. And that was awesome. I mean, they both laid their lives out for each other, and how you can't get much more romantic than that. Number 3 on the list is Longshot and Dazzler. Both from the X-Men comics. Longshot first got his start in a miniseries in 1986, and Dazzler many years before that. But when they were both on the X-Men, what really intrigued me about this romance is it was some of the darkest days of the X-Men at that time. They were going through a lot of earth-shattering missions and shakeups of the team. And for these two to find romance amongst all that, and for different writers and stuff to explore it in different ways, was very intriguing for me at the time. I was about 10 or 11 when Longshot first joined the team, and I think pretty much from the get-go those two hit it off, and they had a romance after that. Of course, now in the future they lived in Mojo verse together, or Mojo world together, had a kid or whatever. I mean, I don't follow the new stuff. I think it's even Shatterstar. I don't know. But those early comics in the 80s, I mean, that was the time when my adolescence was kicking in, and to me that seemed like the coolest romance of adventure and death-defying missions and odds that they faced, but they still had each other. And that's what intrigued me about that couple. Now, number 4 on the list is Max Sterling and Miriah. Hailing from Robotech, Max and Miriah were probably had the most unconventional of meetings. See, if you're not familiar with Robotech, it's us, the humans, versus an alien force called the Zentradi, which are these huge giants. And we pilot transforming mechs, Veritex, the jets, to combat these giant Zentradi. Well, Miriah is a Zentradi and Max is a human. And when they first meet, it's in a dogfight where Max takes out Miriah and she wants revenge. So, what the Zentradi were known to do were to shrink down so that they can infiltrate the humans. And she does that and wants to assassinate him. Well, long story short, when the time finally comes when she could deal the killing blow, he defeats her once again. And when she just gives up and says, "Kill me," he tells her that he's in love with her and how beautiful she is, and asks her to marry him. And she doesn't even know what marriage is, but she loves him the same, because the Zentradi, being a warring race, really don't know what love is. So she misinterpreted her vengeance feelings, and when they were actually love. Yeah, I know. Anyway, it was a romance. It was cool because she was a formidable fighter as well, and they fought side by side after that. Number 5 is Wesley and Buttercup, or Dread Pirate Roberts and Buttercup, from The Princess Bride. Now, looking back at it, I believe that, and no offense, but Robin Wright could have acted a little bit more affectionate towards Wesley, but Carrie Elways portrayed a smitten and love-struck young farm hand perfectly. So when he came back for her and the trials that he went through to save her and to profess his love again were breathtaking. It is a great movie on all different fronts. It's one of my favorites. But the trials and tribulations he goes through to save her, and what his new friends do to get them back together again, I mean, how much more romantic can you get than that? He comes back from death to get his love back, because nothing can stop true love. Now, number 6 on the list is Indiana Jones and Marion. Now, their relationship is very rocky in the movie when it starts because of their past experiences with each other. Indiana Jones is older than her, and they had a very young romance. And he left to pursue his job and his adventures. So when they run into each other again, Marion has a lot of built-up animosity towards Indy. Understandably so. But as the movie continues on, you can see that he truly loves her because of the different death-defying sacrifices that he puts himself through in order to save her and get her back. You see the depression he faces when he thinks he's lost her. And you see some of the tender moments that they share when she's trying to patch him up when they're on the ship. I think that scene is great because of, like I said, the tenderness that it shows and also the humor that it portrays. But growing up, this was probably one of, I hate to say it because it's not the strongest or most romantic, but it was one of my earliest, he's a hero and she is his lady type of experiences in 1981 when the movie came out. I was 5 at the time when it came out, and it was probably one of my earliest hero fascinations and the woman that loves him. Wow, another movie that came out that time was Clash of the Titans and Perseus and Andromeda. Huh, that's not on the list. It should have been, but it's not on the list. Anyway, number 7 on the list is Hawkeye and Mockingbird. Hawkeye and Mockingbird are both very dashing and swashbuckling characters, and it was great to see them working side by side in the Avengers and the West Coast Avengers. They had a playful attitude towards each other, and it was just fun. It was a fun romance for someone that had a budding adolescence and knowing and thinking that that's how romance should be. It should be fun. It should be by the seat of your pants. It should be exciting. And those two characters really embodied that. Yet again, it was another romance like Flint and Lady Jaye that when the chips were down, they both saved each other in equal amount of times. There was no damsel in distress. Mockingbird kicked a lot of butt just like Hawkeye, and they were both tremendous heroes. Now, number 8 is probably one of the biggest romances for a lot of dudes and dudettes in our age category, and that is Han Solo and Princess Leia. To be honest, in New Hope, you don't know where the romance is going. You think it's between Luke and Leia because that's just how it is. And at the beginning of Empire, when that that kiss, which we won't really talk about, happens, yeah. So later in the movie, when Han's trying to put the moves on Leia, you kind of just think he's just, a roguish hero and that's what he does. But it's not until the carbonite chamber that you really discover that they have feelings for each other. With the famous, "I love you, I know" line. But their romance doesn't really kick into high gear until the beginning of Return of the Jedi. Leia puts herself in danger to save Han from Jabba's palace. I think she wanted to do it because of just how much she loved him and she wanted to be the one to save him. Of course, you could argue that Luke had a plan and this and that, but did she really need to put herself in harm's way? Probably not, but I think she wanted to. And as the movie goes on, you see their romance grow. And there's nothing better than when the line is revisited while they're on the forest moon of Endor of the Han saying, "I love you," and Leia saying, "I know." It was a romance that our imaginations picked up after the movies, and we created our own stories, and the expanded universe filled some of those in. Yes, it was a little sad of how it was portrayed in The Force Awakens, but unfortunately, yeah, we'll just leave it at that, unfortunately. Now, number 9 on the list is Snake Eyes and Scarlett. Yeah, I know people that only knew about the G.I. Joe cartoon would say, no, it's Duke and Scarlett. No, 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 no. My friends, in the comic book, Scarlett and Snake Eyes had a romance for the ages. It was a Beauty and the Beast tale, if you will, because Snake Eyes look like this. Scarlett didn't care. She knew what kind of dude Snake Eyes was on the inside, and what a hero he really was, on top of it all. They, again, a relationship where they pulled each other's fat out of the fire. Scarlett was just as awesome as Snake Eyes, and they both were heroes together. Even though when they were separated, and they always came back together. The comic book did such a good job at painting their relationship. And again, this was a very early romance that I kind of idolized. I mean, to me, it was perfect. Snake Eyes was one of the best characters ever, in my opinion. And Scarlett, again, a great character that they just deserve to be with each other. Now, number 10 on the list is Green Arrow and Black Canary. This is a romance that has been going on for a long time within DC, but my first exposure to it was in the miniseries The Longbow Hunters. In the miniseries, it portrayed their romance as fun and spontaneous, but when Black Canary is kidnapped, Oliver stops at nothing to save her. Because he had plans of retiring, but he came out of retirement to save her, and he stopped at nothing. He actually killed people, and it was some of the most gruesome superhero stuff I had seen at the time. Because by this time, I hadn't read Watchmen or anything of that ilk. This was the first time I saw nudity and violence in a comic book. And that made it so much more visceral how much he loved her and how he would stop at nothing to save her life. As the Green Arrow comic book went on, it really showed all the different facets of their relationship. The ups, the downs, the fun, the sadness. It was great. And it was something that I loved reading just as much as all the action and superhero set pieces. It was probably my first dabbling of soap opera-esque storytelling because of the romance side of things, but I love it, and to this day I think that is one of the best romances ever in a comic book or of all time. Anyway, that was just a quick look at 10 of the biggest romances of my childhood. Happy Valentine's Day. If you liked what you saw, give a thumbs up. If you got a comment, please leave it. I read them all and I'll get back to you. And if you liked this episode and you want to see more 80s fueled nostalgia, please subscribe. And if you hit the bell, you'll be notified first thing every week when new episode drops. So anyway, until next time, my name's Rob. Keep being rad, stay dorky. See ya!